Go.
Yeah, folks, I'm going to redo my grandfather. I thought about what I had to say about him. I so confused, I think, everybody. And I'm going to start over with my grandfather. And I'm going to start over first and tell you what I know about him briefly, as a biographer. My grandfather was born, this is the Reverend Dr. Carl Eckhart Grammer. He is my mother's father. He is my maternal grandfather. And he was born before the American Civil War. And I think when the war ended, I think he was about 6 years old. And he lived until early 44, but he had a stroke. I believe it was a stroke in September of 43. So I can say that I knew my grandfather until September of 1943. And he told me, I didn't ask him much about his background, but I asked him where the name Grammer came from, and he said he thought it was Alsace-Lorraine. It's a German-speaking province of France. And I asked him when his ancestors got here, and he said his grandfather arrived in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. itself, the new nation's capital, in around 1800. And he said he thought he came to this country to evade being drafted into Napoleon's army. So he did not want to fight for Napoleon. I don't think he wanted to fight at all. Now, grandfather was the son of an Episcopal minister. And grandfather graduated from Johns Hopkins University. He did not want to be a minister. He went to the Yale Law School. He graduated from the Yale Law School, worked for a couple of months, and decided no, he did not want to be a lawyer. He wanted to be a minister. So then he went to the famous Episcopal Theological Seminary in Alexandria, Virginia, and graduated there with a PhD, and that's where a doctor of theology, I guess they call him. That's what made him the Reverend Doctor. So he was an Episcopal minister with a phenomenal education, and he was a very successful Episcopal minister, both as a deliverer of sermons, but also as a organizer and runner of a church. Grandmother said that he was an unbelievable businessman. I guess he had all that education. Johns Hopkins and the Yale Law School came to good use to him. Grandfather could read many languages, of course, English, German, French, Latin, Greek, and maybe Hebrew. I'm not sure about that. I think he told me he could read Hebrew, but I know he could read Greek. And in Latin, he made it a point to read something in Latin every day of his adult life. And I know he did that. He read something in Latin every day of his adult life. And through reading of all of the Latin, he also got all of the Latin translations of the Greeks. Grandfather was phenomenally educated, a student of history, a student of philosophy, a student of religion. He was interested in everything. Now, this is his background. Oh, and he ended up in Philadelphia as the rector of Philadelphia's largest downtown Episcopal church. And believe me, in those days, being an Episcopal minister in the biggest downtown Philadelphia church was a big job. And grandfather was very big in the women's suffrage movement, along with my grandmother. I've seen pictures of them riding with the governor, riding with the mayor, leading parades through Philadelphia in behalf of women's rights. The women right to vote. And he was also the second president of the Indian Rights Society. Yeah, Indian Rights Society. And I've seen pictures of him on the Great Plains with the Indian chiefs. And where these pictures went, I have no idea. I'm afraid they disappeared and were stolen in various moves. But grandfather had also a tremendous collection, beautiful collection of Navajo artwork, Navajo blankets and stuff. All that disappeared. And he told me he had a modest coin collection which disappeared. Can you imagine he was collecting coins from the Civil War area right on through to end of 1943. The thing about grandfather to me was that he wanted to encourage your interests. He wasn't interested in encouraging me to be interested in his interests. He wanted to find out what I was interested in and encourage my interests. And for some reason, I was interested in war. I don't know why. I guess I had that gene. I was interested in guns and war. I'll come back to that.
Just, you have to make these short because remember it won't transfer. So
it won't transfer?
Right, so we'll have to do more than one if you want to continue. But just wrap up what you're saying.
Well, it's not going to wrap up. This is just getting going with grandfather.
Okay, is it a point that we can stop and then start again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to